Hey, what's up guys, Skillshot4 here. Today I'm going to be sharing with you my 7 tips for new players. The first tip I have for you guys is to use your sound. Sound is really important in Valorant and can lead to a lot of kills. You should always be listening to where you hear footsteps and be positioning yourself based on that information that you gather. If you're right behind a hallway and you hear 3 pairs of footsteps, you might want to fall back because that probably means they're going to all peek you and you're not going to be able to win that gunfight. Or if you're trying to push a particular bomb site and you hear footsteps, you know where the enemy is going to be at and you can aim accordingly. Always use your sound to try to gather information about the position of the enemies. I would recommend turning your volume up a little bit. It doesn't have to be super loud, but I would recommend making it loud enough so that you can comfortably hear footsteps. But not only do you have to listen for your enemy's footsteps, you have to be careful about your own footsteps. You make quite a bit of noise when you run, and so you need to be careful and only run when you need to. On the minimap, there's a little circle around your player icon. That circle shows you how far the sound of your footsteps stretch. You can really see how large the radius is. So make sure that when you're trying to be sneaky or when you're trying to pull off a flank, you walk and you don't run. You should be running when you need to make a long rotate and get there really quickly, or when the enemies already know where you are and it would be no use to walk, seeing as your position is already revealed. But most of the time you're going to want to walk because it's going to save you from a lot of surprises. The enemy won't be able to kill you if they don't know where you are. So my first tip is always to use your sound. Alright, now the second tip I have for you guys is to manage your economy. The economy system is something that makes games such as Counter-Strike and Valorant unique. This system does a great job of balancing the game, however it can be quite difficult to navigate as a new player. One of the most common mistakes that I see new players make is to always buy. New players love to buy in every single round when they really should be saving. As a general rule, if you don't have enough money to buy both armor and a rifle, then you probably shouldn't be buying. There are exceptions to this, such as a force buy where you may get armor and pistols or armor and SMGs, but for new players I would recommend saving up that money to get good guns and good armor. Don't put yourself at a disadvantage by buying every single round and not being able to afford the rifles. Also, don't throw your money away and don't be selfish with your money. If you're still using an SMG and your team has just started to win rounds, you maybe shouldn't upgrade to a rifle. Keep using that SMG until you die, that way you're going to have enough money built up to support your team later on. Also, if you have a teammate that doesn't have a lot of money, offer to buy them a gun. This can really help them out and help change the course of a round. Don't buy the operator in full heavy armor if you have a teammate that only has 1,000 credits. Drop him a gun instead and you'll make your team so much more balanced and you'll have a better shot at winning the round. So that's my second tip. Always manage your economy well. Alright, now the third tip I have for you guys is to train your aim. Now, aiming is perhaps the most important aspect of Valorant. If you have bad aim, you're just not going to be able to win. The good news is that you can improve that aim through training and practice. If you're someone that comes from a game such as Counter-Strike, then this tip doesn't necessarily apply to you as much. This is more for players that don't have a lot of experience in FPS or aren't particularly strong in the aiming aspect of FPS. So I would recommend doing a lot of aim training to really improve your gameplay. I've released a video on how to properly train your aim and get really strong in the aiming department, so you might want to go check that out. It's going to give you some really good pointers. You don't have to spend a ton of time practicing your aim, but a good training session now and then is really going to help you out and make you play a whole lot better. And that's my third tip, train your aim. Alright, now the fourth tip I have for you guys is to gain map control. This is another one of those big mistakes that I see new players make a lot of the time. New players love to push the same spot and just try to take it by force with their overwhelming numbers. However, this rarely works out well. In order to successfully take a bomb site, you have to have map control. You have to push from multiple angles and multiple positions in order to really flesh out the enemy and get those kills. If you all push from the same place, you're going to be a lot more susceptible to nade damage and spray downs. Additionally, you're going to be very vulnerable to flanks. You should normally have 2 people push from the most direct route into the bomb site, 2 people push from mid if the map has a mid, and 1 person to cover flanks and rotates. If you try to follow this setup, you're going to notice that you're going to be taking a lot more bomb sites and winning a lot more games. A lot of new players don't queue up with people, and so they can't have this full setup, but that's not a problem. If you're playing by yourself and your random teammates all decide to push for 1 point, maybe you should go and try to take mid, or you should play flank watch. You're going to add to your team a lot more than just pushing from the same spot as everyone else. So that's my 4th tip. Always try to gain map control. Don't push from the same place. Now the 5th tip I have for you guys is to communicate. This is a really big one. It's also the #1 thing that I see new players neglect. New players do not communicate well. They do a very poor job at it, and that can cost you so many rounds and so many games. In a 5v5 competitive team-based game such as Valorant, communication is essential. You can't possibly play well if your team doesn't communicate. So you have to make sure that you give callouts and you give information. If you're holding an angle and you see 2 enemies peek you and you fall back, call out where the 2 enemies are and ping where they are. That way your teammates know. If you die and you know where the enemy killed you from, call out where that enemy is. It could help your teammate get a kill. If you see that Spike is down, call that out and ping it. That way you can just protect Spike instead of trying to hold all the bomb sites. You should always be communicating with your team. If there's something that could really help your teammates out, let them know. Also, the more you communicate, the more your teammates are going to communicate with you. They could give you callouts that can help you get kills. Communicating is a really important aspect of Valorant. So that's my 5th tip, communicate with your team. Now, the 6th tip that I have for you guys is to not be too aggressive or too passive. New players tend to fall in 2 categories. Either they play way too aggressive or they play way too passive. You should not be rushing towards the enemy every round trying to kill them. Valorant is a very tactical game and it requires a lot of patience and thinking. On defense, you should be burning as much time as possible because time is on your side. Try to stall the enemy out and prevent them from pushing. Also, try to gain information to where they are, that way you can do a quicker rotate when you need to. On attack, you should be doing the same sort of thing. Don't immediately push into site trying to clear it out. Use the time you have to gather information about where the defenders are positioned. Use this information to try to get a pick here or there and then push into site. However, you have to be careful that you don't venture into the 2nd category, which is playing too passively. New players can sometimes be afraid of the enemy. They're afraid that if they peek an angle or try to go for a kill, that they're going to die. Sometimes this happens and you just can't avoid it. But you can't play completely passively and not take any risks. Sitting back and doing nothing is not going to help your team win the round. You should always be trying to either get a kill or gather information for your team so that you can get kills. When you're on offense, maybe you should go for an aggressive peek, that way you can catch your enemy off guard and gain a little bit more map control. On attack, sometimes you have to be aggressive and forcibly take an area, that way you can push closer to the bomb site. The goal is to strike a happy medium between being aggressive and being passive. If you can find this medium, you're going to notice a big improvement. So that's my 6th tip, don't be too aggressive or too passive. Now the 7th tip that I have for you guys is to play your operator's role. All the operators have different roles that they're suited for and they have different strengths and weaknesses. Whatever operator you pick, you should always make sure that you're playing to that operator's particular strength. For an example, both Raze and Phoenix are designed to be fraggers. If you're going to play those operators, you should be trying to get kills for your team. These operators are not meant to be support operators and you should not play them as such. However, operators like Brimstone and Sage are meant to be support operators. If you're going to play Sage, you shouldn't be super aggressive trying to get those opening kills because you could die and you're not going to benefit your team as much. You should be playing her to heal your teammates and to slow the enemy down, not to frag out. Brimstone is used to stall the enemies or to smoke off areas so that you can take bomb sites. He's another operator that you don't want to play as a frag heavy operator. Because if you play him that way, you're not using him the way he's intended to be used and your team is going to lose a valuable asset. If you play Sage as a fragging operator, your team isn't going to have anyone to slow the enemy down or to heal your teammates. If you play Brimstone as a fragger, you're going to lose the same sort of utility. You should always be looking at what the operator is designed to do and picking your operator based on that. If you want to be a fragger, then go for Raze or Phoenix and don't play Sage or Brimstone. However, if you want to support your teammates and not play that frag heavy role, then by all means go for Sage or Brimstone and let someone who is going to play that role play Raze or Phoenix. So that's my last tip, play to your agent's strengths. Alright guys, that's pretty much it for this video. I really hope you liked it and I really hope you learned something from it. If you did like the video, please leave a like and comment down below what your personal tips are for new players. If you would like to see more Valorant content, please consider subscribing. I release gameplay highlights multiple times a week and at least one guide or tutorial video in the week. Thank you all for watching and I will see you next time.